With this here, this ain't about being flashy. This is game day, son. It's only about one thing. Getting that W. That's the only thing that matters right now. Boy, are you ready?
The past is the past, you know? It's a new day, bro. My day. Gotta do it now.
Hey guys, it's the Blindside Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm here with Marcus Katkin. My name's Matt Dugal. We're going to be going over a mock draft Marcus participated in just a few days ago. Jim Day, Draftmaster 23. How you doing today, Marcus?
Good. How's it going, Matt?
Not too bad. Pretty much what we're going to do is just a little rundown on the way the picks went. Go over some key points. Marcus and I both feel were either good picks, questionable picks, highlighted picks. So, starting right off, Trent Richardson, number 1, Adrian Peterson at 2, followed by Doug Martin, Calvin Johnson, Arian Foster, and Ray Rice. This was a 12-man redraft. So, Marcus, right away, we've got a huge star there. Number 1, Trent Richardson. What do you think about that?
I like Trent Richardson a lot this year. He battled a lot of injuries last year, but really still did really, really well for them. I think he'll do even better this year if he's injury-free. But number 1 overall, I think, is just crazy. I'm not touching him at number 1 overall. I'm definitely going Peterson. If you're not going Peterson, you need to get your head checked.
Adrian ran over 2,000 yards last year. Everybody thinks, he can't do that again. Well, even if he does, what if he does 1,700 yards? What if he does 1,600 yards? I think going against Adrian, what he's shown you, consistency, since he's been in the league, no question, he's number 1 this year. If you go with Trent Richardson, maybe Doug Martin. What do you think about Doug Martin at 3? Young player, in the same class as Trent. These two guys could take the league by storm. And is it going to be this year?
I get Doug Martin's numbers from last year. He did really well. I'm just not a fan of him personally. A lot of his yards and a lot of his touchdowns, a third of his touchdowns last year, came in just one game. His second best game of the year was Week 17 against the Atlanta Falcons when the Falcons just had already had things wrapped up and really weren't playing for anything. So, those 2 good games, one of them obviously a fluke. He's not going to get 250 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns ever again in his career probably. And then his second best game of the year, again, just you could probably throw that game out just because of what the Falcons were playing for. I don't think he does nearly what he did last year again. I get what people are saying about him. He gets his offensive line back, another year in the system. He's a young running back, going to get better. But for me, he's not a top 3 pick.
I agree. Like you said, the 4 touchdown day, that was like seeing 3 weeks at once. It's something that everybody remembers, really. And I think if he does have a great year, no one's going to be surprised. He shows he has the talent. The team is young. You got to believe they're only getting better. Schiano. He changed Rutgers. He came into the NFL, and he's slowly changing them as well over in Tampa Bay. But 3, I'd go with guys like Arian Foster, even Ray Rice over him. Obviously, Calvin, Marcus, you agree with this? Number 1 wide receiver. If you're not, I think you're nuts. What do you think about that?
Yeah, Calvin's definitely a number 1 wide receiver. I was a little surprised that he went before Arian Foster still. I mean, Doug Martin and Calvin before Foster I thought was really surprising. I don't think we'll ever see him drop to the 5th overall pick in any draft ever again. But congrats to FF Counselor and taking him at 5th overall. That was a great pick for him.
So we'll move on. We got A.J. Green at 7, Jamal Charles 8, Lynch at 9, C.J. Spiller at 10, and then LaShawn McCoy, Marcus, was actually your pick. Love it there. And then 12 is Alfred Morris finishing out the first round. So go ahead and highlight the big name you see there. And by the way, definitely love your pick at 11. I think that's huge value, LaShawn McCoy.
Yeah, I mean, I've done 2 redraft mock drafts so far this year, and both of them I've ended up taking LaShawn McCoy in the first round. In the previous mock draft I had done, I had the 10th pick overall, and I took LaShawn McCoy, and here at 11 I took him again. Chip Kelly offense loves to run the ball. He just absolutely runs the ball millions of times a game. There's going to be plenty of fantasy love for LaShawn McCoy. Bryce Brown, I think, gets his dues as well, but I see Bryce Brown as more that 8 to 10 touch per game guy. I think McCoy is still going to get his 20 to 25 touches. He's going to get all the touchdowns. I think it's going to be a huge year for him. and I'm definitely taking him over people like C.J. Spiller, Jamal Charles, where they're that big explosive back, but the backs that one day could get you 20 points, and the next week get you 2. I think McCoy's just gonna have those big games like they have, and just be more consistent.
Now, LaShawn, like you said, both of your drafts, you've got him the tail end of the first round. You wrote a great article about Chip Kelly, his tendency to run the football in his years at Oregon. What are you expecting for LaShawn? Do you see a top 3, top 5 running back this year? Would that be definitely, absolutely doable?
I think probably top 7 is probably closer. Top 3, top 5. He has that capability. But I mean, you got to kind of see how it goes first. I'm definitely comfortable in these 2 drafts, taking him 10th and 11th overall. I think top 7. I'm taking Peterson before him. I'm taking Foster ahead of him. I'm taking Richardson ahead of him. Martin, as much as I don't like him, I'm taking ahead of him. AJ Green Ray Rice is probably right around where I'm, kind of on the bubble. Do I go McCoy? Do I do Ray Rice? Rice just, I don't know, the Bernard Pierce factor just kind of scares me a little bit there.
Yeah.
So I think it's right around in that range that I would start considering McCoy. But like I said, 10th, 11th pick overall, I love it.
Well, I just want to let everyone know, reference real quick the article you did write about him. How much work will LaShawn McCoy and Bryce Brown get in the Chip Kelly offense? Check it out, blindsidefootball.com. Marcus really went in depth in the analytics of a Chip Kelly offense. You're going to see some good things from LaShawn this year. I think you're selling yourself a little short on the article you wrote. I could see a top 3, top 5. So we'll move on here into the second round, where the first pick of the second round was Matt Forte. We got Chris Johnson. That was actually Marcus's pick. Then Stephen Ridley, Darren Sproles, David Wilson in the second round, and Julio Jones. Marcus, Matt Forte, and then Chris Johnson. What did you think? Were you hoping Matt would fall to you, or you love Chris at this position?
I'm still not a Matt Forte fan. The touchdowns just aren't there. I just don't like him. I like staying away from him. He gets hurt a lot. Michael Bush is there still, not really cutting too much into the carries, but has the ability to if they need him for the goal line and stuff like that. Chris Johnson, he gets all the carries for the Titans. He just gets all of them. There's no worry about anybody taking away his carries from him. He catches the ball out of the backfield a lot, so he's getting you tons of yards every week. It's not just the rushing. That's one of the things that scares me about Alfred Morris is he gets the yards rushing, but if they fall behind, is he going to be a part of the offense? And he's not. Ray Halu's going to come into the game. Roy Halu. People like that. And that's Forte. He gets the yards, but the touchdowns just aren't there. And that's why I think I go for the more explosive back like Chris Johnson. I was really surprised to see people like Darren Sproles and David Wilson this early in the second round. Sproles, he gets the red zone work. I think he's going to be, a good back. Don't get me wrong. I think he'll be, a third, fourth round talent, but early second round seems a little early. What do you think?
Yeah, Sproles is consistent because he does it all, but he's not a guy that, you say you don't jump on your fantasy football app till 4 o'clock and you see a guy that's got 30 points. Sproles not one of those kind of guys that you can realistically, see that happening. You wrote a great article on David Wilson on, again, blindsidefootball.com that really should open some eyes. The article's getting a lot more clout out there. It's called David Wilson, Where He Should Go in Your Fantasy Football Draft. Check it out on blindsidefootball.com. It's really going to open the eyes of what the heck are people doing drafting him in the second round. And this guy who did it, it's not crazy. We've seen this in, Marcus, your first mock draft. You were in with the experts there. When did he go in that round, in that draft? Do you remember?
I think he went late second round in that one as well. And it's way too early. If you look at the numbers, when Wilson and Andre Brown play in the same game, Andre Brown is just getting way more carries than David Wilson. I get that David Wilson came on second half of the year, but you got to realize he only came on because Andre Brown got hurt and got knocked out for the year. That's the only reason why he got his opportunity. You can't clear-cut say David Wilson's going to be the guy and get all the carries in New York. Andre Brown's still there. He's still going to be a factor. I'm just not ready to say that Wilson's the clear-cut guy that's going to get all the work.
No question. I think, as the season gets closer, the regular season especially, you see what happens in the preseason, maybe you'll get a clear idea. But in the second round, I'm not drafting a question mark, and I think that's really all David Wilson is right now. So moving beyond him, we go to the 7th pick in the second round. We have Des Bryant, Demaryius Thomas, Maurice Jones-Drew, Brandon Marshall, DeMarco Murray, and then Rob Gronkowski, the first tight end off the board. So, Marcus, Julio Jones actually finished up the first half of the second round. Des Bryant followed him, and then Demaryius Thomas. So we saw a little run on wide receivers there. Why don't you give me your rankings for those three I just listed: Julio Jones, Des Bryant, Demaryius Thomas. Who are you going to take number one there if you're looking at those three guys? I'm
beyond those three guys. I'm actually going with Brandon Marshall, I think.
Yeah, he was the fourth taken right in between, or right after MJD. We almost had 4 wide receivers in a row.
Yeah, he really turned it on last year. He's back with Cutler again. He's going to get the 100 catches a year. He's a guaranteed lock for 1,200 yards and 7 or 8 touchdowns, probably a lot more than that. I love Brandon Marshall back with Jay Cutler. That's who Cutler looks for. That's who he wants. I'm taking Brandon Marshall over all those guys. I love Julio Jones. I love his talent. I think Roddy White is going to really come down this year, but he's too inconsistent for me. Just up and down. Just kind of like what we said a little while back there. He's too 30-point game one week or high 20s, and then the next week 2 points, and you don't want that inconsistency in your fantasy team. Not this early for me, at least. That's why I'm sticking with Brandon Marshall.
Yeah, I think as far as the talent level, all 4 of those guys are just physical freaks. We've seen some injury questions with Julio Jones, obviously with Des Bryant, even Demaryius Thomas. He missed his whole rookie year just about. Brandon Marshall is just consistent, and obviously we know about how Jay Cutler feels about him. It seems like he snaps the ball, and 90% of the drop back is looking over at his way. So, I think Brandon Marshall is the safer of all 4, and I think that's a good pick. But you do see the upside, of course, with Julio, with Dez, and with Demaryius. They're all young, up-and-coming, guys that are staking a claim to be the best in the league, as the years go by here in the next few. So what did you think about Gronkowski finishing out the second round there, the first tight end off the board? Unless you want to talk about Jones, Drew, or DeMarco Murray.
No, I like the Gronkowski pick. He's just so much more dominant. Him and Graham over the other tight ends. That late second round like that, I think that's a steal. He's going to get you, on average, I got to say 3 to 4 fantasy points more per game than the other tight ends that are available. Right. So I think that's a great pick. That's the guy that picked him. He started off the draft a little weak with Trent Richardson. I think that was a little crazy, but I like his 2 picks right here. Rob Gronkowski at the end of the second, and then Darren McFadden first pick of the third. That I love the McFadden pick. I think they go back to that that zone running scheme that he was good in, and I think he does as well as he did a couple of years ago. And so beginning of the third round, I think that's a steal.
Well, maybe it sounds like Fantasy Acumen has a little bit of an idea what's going on out there. Jimmy Graham, like you said, Gronkowski, also you mentioned him. Those 2 guys, value at their position. I don't think there's another position that has that kind of a drop off from 1A, 1B to 2. You look at the running backs. You've got Adrian Peterson, of course, he's amazing. But then Arian Foster, the guy who does it all in the backfield, he does it in all the ways. Doug Martin, up and coming. There's guys that are close. If you really do pick someone else other than Adrian, you're not nuts. But when you're looking at tight ends, it's those 2 and then everybody else. So yeah, I like him going 2 in the second round, I should say, and I think that was a pretty good pick. Third round, we'll start with Darren McFadden, Jimmy Graham, the next tight end. So as you see, very close, like we were talking. Percy Harvin, Frank Gore, Roddy White, the guy that Marcus thinks has fallen off a little bit, and then Aaron Rodgers there to finish out the first half of the third round. Marcus, Darren McFadden falling to the third round. This last year would have been something you wouldn't have seen, but what do you think about it now? Has he proven himself as injury-prone, can't quite get it done?
I think, McFadden's going to consistently go in the third round this year. I love him in the third round. I'm taking him all day in the third round. I think he is injury-prone, so you are going to only get him for 13 games. You can't realistically count on him for 16 games a year because it just isn't going to happen. But those 13 games I'm going to take over a lot of the guys that are left. They're 16 games per year. I think he's explosive. I think he could be top 3, top 5 if he stays healthy, and I'm taking a gamble on that in the third round.
The talent is there. He's fast. He's got good size. He can run hard. The big issue last year was they changed the whole blocking scheme. They went to the zone blocking scheme, and I think if you're in Oakland and you don't see that didn't work, then you've got big problems. So you got to expect they're gonna change things up. They need to utilize his talent, not slow it down. This guy is behind the Jamal Charleses. He can do it all as far as just breaking one. The guy's got the speed, and like I said, the size. He's a poor man's Adrian Peterson. If he can put it all together, that's the question that we've been asking now since he's come in this league out of Arkansas. So then Jimmy Graham going right after him. We talked about this already. Either one of those guys, Gronkowski, Jimmy Graham, you're gonna be well off. Percy Harvin, Marcus, at third pick in the third round. There's a lot of question marks around him. His talent, but what are you thinking? You staying away from him this year, or?
I think third round is probably fair for him. He did great last year. He was a top 5 wide receiver last year until he got hurt. It just kind of scares me a little bit with what is going on with him in Minnesota. Where is he going to end up? Is he going to stay in Minnesota? If he stays in Minnesota, is he going to be a holdout? There's just a lot of question marks right now. Obviously we're going to know by the time August, September rolls around. But for right now, I think early third round for him is just too many question marks for me. I'm gonna be looking elsewhere.
So you would be taking guys like, let's see, the wide receivers that follow him, Roddy White. A little bit later on, we haven't gone over this yet, but Randall Cobb, Andre Johnson. You're gonna take those kind of guys over Percy right now?
I think there's some guys out there that I would take over him. Mm-hmm. I'm not a big wide receiver early kind of guy. My strategy this year is going to be first 3 rounds, take at least 2, hopefully 3 stud running backs, because they're hard to come by when you get a bell cow back. So that's kind of my strategy this year, is take 2 or 3 running backs in the first 3 rounds. If I deviate away from a running back, I'm going to go with a tight end, a Gronkowski or a Graham, just because of how dominant they've been. And then I'm waiting on quarterback. Actually, in this draft, I considered Aaron Rodgers instead of Chris Johnson in that early second round because of how good Aaron Rodgers has been. And we see here, everybody else is holding off on quarterbacks because of the depth. He went the middle of the third round, which is the latest I've seen him go in years.
What do you think about him going there? Great pick at Fifth Street, right? That's huge value to get a guy that, if he leads the league in fantasy scoring, you're going to say, yep, I figured that. It's halfway through the third round. Aaron Rodgers, what do you think about that? Is that nuts? Or?
See, the thing is, like I said, it just... He's consistently been, the number 1 quarterback every year and the number 1 fantasy scorer. And I think that, there's definitely good quarterbacks out there. Him, Breeze, Brady, those types of quarterbacks. There's a lot of quarterback depth this year, so as much as I can, I want to hold off on quarterbacks. But even in this draft, you can see, 11th pick of the third round, I went with Tom Brady just because you can't wait any longer, I feel. End of the third round, you're getting Tom Brady. I think that's just crazy value. As much as I wanted to hold off on quarterback, I couldn't wait at Tom Brady there. I had to take him.
So we'll jump into the second part of the third round. It was Breeze, Randall Cobb, Andre Johnson, Lamar Miller out of Miami, and then like Marcus said, can you believe it? You're getting Tom Brady after Lamar Miller.
Crazy.
So you saw a little run on quarterbacks there. The top 3 go. Randall Cobb, 8th pick in the third round. I'm a big believer in Randall Cobb. It's definitely earlier in the season right now. I think preseason is going to show a big thing with him. We got Greg Jennings. Where's he going? But do you see him as a guy in the third round? You're going to be taking Randall Cobb?
No, I'm staying away from Randall Cobb personally, just because Rodgers likes to just spread the ball around in Green Bay. It's hard to predict which guy is going to be the guy. Obviously, I got burned a lot last year by taking Jordy Nelson as high as I did in a bunch of leagues, and it's just, Jennings is, assuredly gone next year. He's out, but Randall Cobb, James Jones, Jordy Nelson, maybe somehow Jermichael Finley jumps back in there. There's too many guys there that the ball gets spread around way too much.
Right, and Rodgers is good enough where he's not a Jay Cutler who can look the one guy. Namely Brandon Marshall. He doesn't care. If it was me running around and I was open, he'd fucking throw it through my hands.
Yeah, you'd have 800 yards receiving with Aaron Rodgers.
Right. So on to the next stuff here. Andre Johnson, just quickly, is he done? Is he finally done? Everyone every year has been saying he's getting old, but he keeps producing. Is this the year where he's done, or?
I don't think he's done, but he's definitely dropping off this year. End of the third round, I'm not touching him.
Yeah.
There's too many wide receivers out there, and he's just over the hill for me. I'm not touching him that early.
Now FF Riddle at FF Riddle takes Lamar Miller almost to close out. It's the 10th pick of the third round. A kid with a lot of talent. He was a 4th round pick out of Miami University. You got to figure Bush is out of there. They have Daniel Thomas, who is a concussion waiting to happen. This kid is probably going to get a lot of work. It is just a mock draft early in the year. Like I said, preseason obviously is coming. It's going to make a big change. But, I mean, Lamar Miller in the third round, I'm going to take Tom Brady, Hakeem Nicks, Eric Decker, Larry Fitzgerald, Vincent Jackson. I'm going to take all those guys over him.
I'm taking a lot of people over Lamar Miller. Again, it's another situation like David Wilson. You don't know that for sure he's the guy. Daniel Thomas is still there. And we'll obviously know a lot more towards, again, August, September, but it's looking like they're going to pick up a running back. There's some talks about Rashard Mendenhall going there, which I think would be a perfect fit for them. They can use Mendenhall half the time, Miller half the time, a little bit of Daniel Thomas thrown in there. But I think we're getting a little bit too crazy with, hey, this guy might be the guy. Let's pretend like he is. And I think too many people are just jumping on that bandwagon too fast. You don't know. And even if they are the guy, then you're drafting them about where they should be, 2nd, 3rd round. You're not getting any value out of that. Exactly. So you're taking on all the risk and getting no value.
Marcus, so he had 51 carries last year, and he's going in 3rd rounds of mock drafts. I love it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So let's continue on down the row here. Tom Brady, we talked about him a little earlier. I mean, 11th pick in the 3rd round, you're getting Tom Brady. Yeah, I like it. Hakeem Nicks at 12. This is a guy who's spent time as a top 5, top 3, and potential-wise shows it when he's healthy almost every Sunday. But is it one of those things where I'm sick of rolling the dice? I'm sick of hoping this guy's going to be healthy. I'm sick of hoping Eli Manning's going to be playing well. I'm sick of hoping that Cruz isn't going to be the guy today. Are you done believing in Hakeem Nicks, or is the end of the 3rd round definitely a good pick? What do you think?
I think Nicks has still got something left in him. When he's healthy, he's a stud. He's awesome.
Yeah. When he's healthy.
Yeah, that's the key words being there. When he's healthy. But the thing to remember is he's only 25 right now. He's going to be 25 at the start of the season. He's still young. What I understand, I think he's 14 months younger than Victor Cruz. So he's actually younger than Cruz. He's played in the league a lot longer. He's a stud when he plays. It's just, I think it's back to the Darren McFadden thing. I think it's, you got to, when you draft him, you have to know that you're getting him for 12 games, 13 games. I think when you draft him, you have to understand that you're not getting him for all 16 games.
Right. So we'll continue on in the 4th round. A guy I really like, Eric Decker, starts it off. Followed by Larry Fitzgerald in the 4th round. That's funny. Vincent Jackson, then Victor Cruz, Pierre Garçon, and Aaron Hernandez. Marcus actually went with the 2nd pick in the 4th round. The guy I highlighted earlier, Larry Fitzgerald. If Decker was available, are you going to take him over Larry?
No. I want to hear why the Fitzgerald pick was funny. I want to hear this one.
Not funny that he went in the 4th round. Just funny that it's fucking Larry Fitzgerald going in the 4th round. This is a guy that pretty much since he's been in the league, 2nd year starting, you're taking him top 5 wide receiver.
I was going to say,
he is falling here.
You probably haven't seen Fitzgerald fall to the 4th round since his rookie year.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, it's Larry Fitzgerald. He's a beast. If you took all the wide receivers in the league and just lined them up by how good they were, he's easily top 3. It's him and Megatron and I don't know, AJ Green.
Right, and that's why I was laughing in the 4th round. It's like you didn't see that before.
Yeah, I think based on his skills, he needs to be a top 3 wide receiver. I think one way or another, Arizona gets better at wide receiver. It's just a matter of what do they do to get better.
Better at quarterback, you mean?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's got to be pretty easy to do considering how bad they were last year.
Yeah, he did well with Kevin Kolb last year. It's just, if Kevin Cobb's around, then there you go.
So you're all right with taking him over Vincent Jackson though here?
Yes, Vincent. It just was up and down, not quite the big swings like we talked about earlier, but still up and down.
Yeah.
He's a big play receiver. He's the type of guy that throughout his career, gets 65, 75 receptions, not, 70 or 80 type of thing.
Right.
I just, he's an average. No, I don't want to say average. He's better than average, but the swings are too big for me. I get, Fitzgerald had a terrible year last year, but I think he turns it around.
Right, you're going to have a 25-point night for Vincent Jackson, followed by a 2 and a 3, and then another 18. I mean, he's a guy that you can't count on week to week. Where Fitzgerald has the talent, he can do the intermediate routes, he can go long, he can be the red zone threat. To do it all, you just hope that the quarterback can produce. So for the second half of the fourth round, first pick was Ryan Matthews, followed by Wes Welker, Michael Crabtree, good old Steven Jackson, Jordy Nelson, and then Mike Wallace rounded out the fourth round. Anybody in there that's really catching your eye? What about Ryan Matthews? He's fallen down year by year. Do you believe yet, or no? Get away from him.
He's still the guy, so he's still going to get a lot of opportunity, but he gets hurt a lot. I don't know. I think maybe fourth round is probably fair for him, just because he is going to get a lot of opportunity. It's just a matter of how much is he going to get hurt, and really, is he going to do anything with that opportunity? He hasn't. So far he hasn't done anything with that opportunity. So it's really, how is he going to do? I don't know. I think maybe it's middle of the fourth round is probably fair. I'm not really big on Ryan Matthews, though.
Yeah, he passes my eye test. I watch him play, and it's like, this kid's going to be good. But he's starting to become not a kid, and this kid's going to be good things. You're saying that year after year, it's to a point where, you know what, he's just not good.
Exactly.
So Wes Welker follows him. It's really tough to even try to act like you know what you're talking about with Wes right now. If he stays in New England, which is looking more and more unlikely by the day, great pick here. If he doesn't, I don't know if he's a product of the system. We'll move past him to Crabtree. Michael Crabtree, 9th pick in the fourth round. I think as the season goes on, he's going to be a guy that keeps going up and up. What do you think about him this year? Do you see some big things for Michael Crabtree?
Yeah, I think him with Kaepernick is just fantasy gold. He did awesome with Kaepernick last year. He really came into his own, and I think there's going to be more of that this year. Mid end of the fourth round like this, it's probably good value for him, because I think he could easily be a top 5 guy with the full season with Kaepernick. It's just a matter of that small sample size. Is it going to happen all year, or was that just hey, the end of the season run that they made, and towards the Super Bowl and all that? So it'll be interesting to see. I really, really like him this year. I want him on a lot of my teams. Not sure if I'm gonna take him in the fourth round, just because, like I said, I'm gonna go with 2 or 3 running backs in the first 3 rounds, so he'd end up being my first wide receiver. Do I want to gamble with my first wide receiver on somebody that's gonna be so hit or miss this year?
Yeah, he's a guy that, coming out of Texas Tech, he was obviously one of those second coming type guys. People loved him. He's been a prima donna. Everybody knows that, and I feel like he's starting to put it together. And then, like you said, with Kaepernick coming around, he's a guy that you roll the dice on, and you might actually
hit.
Really, really, really hit on him. Steven Jackson, he's another guy. He's like a Welker. You don't really know right now. It's early in the year. He's still got talent, I believe, in Steven Jackson, probably more than you do, Marcus. And you have some very valid points. He's been a workhorse. But if he gets in the right situation, say a Green Bay, a Denver, an offense that will use the running back out of the backfield as well. Steven Jackson's had years where he's had over 60 receptions in a season. He can do it all. He's getting up there. But I'm a little, man crush on him. Marcus, what do you think about Steven Jackson? I might not be the best guy to talk about him.
He's got 2,700 touches so far in his career. He's got a lot of... he's had a lot of wear and tear throughout the years. That being said, he voided his contract for a reason. Staying in St. Louis probably would have gotten him the most money he probably could get at this point in his career. But I think right now he wants to be on a winning team. He's been linked to Green Bay, Atlanta, now that Michael Turner's gone. Even Denver seems to be making a push for him. I think those are all great landing spots for him, because it's going to be much more touchdown opportunities than he's ever had in his career. But I think he's going to be, obviously splitting carries in Denver and in Atlanta with Jacquizz Rodgers. If he lands in Green Bay, I think that's going to be great for him. Green Bay doesn't run the ball very much, but he's going to be the guy and not really have too much competition.
Let's put 5 on it, Marcus. I think Steven Jackson, by season's beginning, is going to be in Green Bay. Where's your gut telling you? Where you want to put 5 on it?
I'm going to say Atlanta. I think
Okay.
if I was going to bet $5 on that, I'd put it on Atlanta. Denver, like I said, is a dark horse. I guess they're really going after him, but I think he's a great fit for Atlanta in that complimentary back to Jacquizz Rodgers.
Complimentary. There's one that I don't know. I think it's going to be a 50-50 type thing. If that does happen, the guy can pick up the blitz. He's a veteran. He knows the systems in the NFL. The guy is a guy who has never.
Too. He'll get it done.
I mean, he's never been on a playoff football team. And when's the last time you ever heard a negative boo at all about Steven Jackson? The guy just comes to work every day, works his ass off, and I think if he was on a team,
even when he's hurt, he plays through it.
The St. Louis Rams, we'd be talking about him as one of the best running backs we've seen in his generation. We'll move on from him. As I said, a little bit of a man crush on Steven Jackson. I just love his professionalism. Going on to Jordy Nelson. Marcus talked about him a little earlier. We're getting him the 11th pick in the 4th round here. Marcus was, all in on him last year, which not just Marcus, a lot of people were. He's got the talent, he's got the quarterback, the speed, the ability to do the intermediate rounds. He can really do it all, but like he said earlier, Marcus, just too many guys there.
Too many.
Jordy Nelson going in the 11th round, the 4th round, 11th pick last year, you would have loved it. Is this about where he's going to be this year?
I don't know. Like I said, I'm just staying away from him.
Yep.
To spread the ball around too much. Even if you are starting him, it could be a James Jones day, it could be a Randall Cobb day. You don't know. He could finish that game with 2-3 points, and then that's it. So I'm just staying away.
So here, between the 8th pick in the 4th round and then going to the 2nd pick in the 5th round, we had Wes Welker, Crabtree, Jordy Nelson, Mike Wallace, and Dwayne Bowe. Put 5 on it, Marcus. Who is going to be the best out of that group this year? Who are you going to take number 1 out of those 5 guys?
Crabtree. Not even a question. He just blew it up last year, so I'm taking Crabtree over all those guys.
So even with Bowe staying in Kansas City and Alex Smith coming in, you're still whatever on him. It's definitely going to be Crabtree for you.
Bowe's obviously going to do a lot better this year now that he's got Alex Smith, but it's still Crabtree. He's just... When I'm picking people, I want somebody that's going to give me that top elite talent, and I think Crabtree's a lot closer to that than Dwayne Bowe is.
Yep. There's questions there. I think another guy who's got the talent level is a Mike Wallace kind of guy, but there's so many questions. Nobody knows right now. I like your idea with Crabtree there. The kid's he's got it, and it seems to be he's getting it as the years go by. So as we said, we went into the Dwayne Bowe with Marcus Colston. That was the 1st and 2nd pick of the 5th round. Jason Witten, I think 3rd tight end off the board, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So Jason Witten follows him in the 3rd pick in the 5th round. And then we go Reggie Wayne, Jacquizz Rodgers, Torrey Smith. Finish out the first half of the 5th round. Who's catching your eye there? Jason Witten, is he the 3rd guy behind obviously the number 1A, 1B that we talked about earlier with Gronkowski and Graham?
I think it's Aaron Hernandez. I still think that he gets a lot done. He's got to stay healthy, but I still got to go Aaron Hernandez over Jason Witten.
No, I don't want to interrupt you, but what if Welker leaves? Does Hernandez come up into the 1A, 1B category?
No, I don't think he gets quite that high,
No?
but
Okay.
I think Hernandez lands in. If Welker leaves, I think he's getting closer to the mid to late 3rd round now for Hernandez. But still, I'm taking him over Witten. I get the reasoning for Witten. I just think Hernandez has bigger upside.
Yeah. We got to remember, too, we are talking fantasy football. I think anybody would take Witten any day over Witten if we're talking about football.
Yeah.
But
he's the more complete tight end.
Hernandez, definitely. The guy looks like a wide receiver out there. He really does.
He lines up in that slot just so much.
So much that it's almost like it's funny that they don't, they should look into slash wide receiver for Hernandez. Like you said,
he lines up
one of
there
those
so
wide
much.
tight ends, like a Jared Cook guy who lines up as a wide receiver, I would say almost just as much as in the tight end role.
Cook last year, 74% of the time, lined up as a wide receiver. It just
wasn't that a big issue with the franchise tender. He was saying, if you're going to franchise me, you're going to put me as a wide receiver.
Yep.
That's what I played for you.
Yep, exactly.
So we're moving on. We got Witten, like we talked about. Reggie Wayne, the old man that just keeps on going. Jacquez Rogers again, and then Torrey Smith. Is Rogers a guy that you could see a top 10, top 15 running back this year? Turner, I think he's gone. Clearly, he's been cut there. Is this guy going to take over? Is this guy going to be a guy that you can see top 15? Would you be thinking it was crazy at that point?
No, I don't. I guess it's not crazy given their offense. I can't see spending a 5th round pick on him. I mean, there's so many other players available right now that I would take over him. I mean, I know I'm saying wait on quarterback, but you can see in this round, I mean, Cam Newton goes a couple picks after him. Even Torrey Smith, I would take both of those guys over Jacquizz Rogers. Flacco likes to throw the deep ball. He's one of the most accurate guys throwing the deep ball, and I think Torrey Smith's going to be a huge benefactor of that. Every year he does better, and I think this year might be the year that Torrey Smith breaks into the top 10 fantasy wide receivers.
Now, Jacquizz is a guy that a lot of people have a little bit of a misnomer on. He's a little guy. He's 5'6". You don't think of a 5'6" guy that's going to be able to handle the workload. But he's 5'6". He weighs over 200 pounds. He ran a 4.5 40. Is he a guy that could handle it if they don't quite? Maybe they go through the draft this year to complement him, and he's not quite ready. Is Jacquizz Rogers a guy that can get 250 to 300 carries, work out of the backfield, and possibly get into that conversation of one of the top backs in the league? Maybe not top backs, but a guy right after that tier.
I think he could handle the workload because he's done it in the past. I think he's an inch shorter and 15 pounds lighter than MJD, so he's got that same build to him.
Yep.
He could probably handle upwards of 250 touches, I'll say, not necessarily carries, but touches in a year and be okay. But I mean, 250, 300 carries, I think, is out of the question for him. I don't think he'd hold up to it. Similar to, I know he's obviously a different player and different size than Jamal Charles, but similar to Jamal Charles in the sense that I think if you give them that much work, they're going to end up getting hurt and not playing the full year.
Yeah. So into the second half of the 5th round, it goes Cam Newton, Jeremy Maclin, Reggie Bush, Eddie Lacy, rookie out of Alabama, and then Marcus takes T.Y. Hilton there with the 11th pick, followed by James Jones to finish out the 12th. Cam Newton, Marcus, is... Just give me your thoughts on him. Obviously, he's a name everybody knows, Superman. What do you think about Cam this year?
I like Cam a lot. He did really, really well last year. People like to think that he didn't do as well last year as I'd like to think. But he finished, fourth best quarterback in fantasy scoring and standard scoring. It went Breeze, Brady, Rodgers, Cam. He still finished the year really well. He really turned it on second half of the year. I think a lot of that was the tough defenses he faced the first half of the year, and I think he's a great quarterback. I like him a lot. Middle of the 5th round like this, it's a great pick. Still, like I said, this just shows how great the quarterback depth is. Middle of the 5th round, you're getting Cam Newton, the 4th best quarterback. It's good value. Obviously, there's still a lot of other good quarterbacks on the board. The RG3s, the Colin Kaepernicks, the Russell Wilsons, Andrew Luck, all those rookies coming in, second-year guys. I think it's great value. He was a lot better, I think, last year than a lot of people realize.
I think this is highlighting the fact that you and I both really believe in when we're talking fantasy football drafts. Taking a quarterback, Marcus got the quarterback. It was the 3rd round, right?
Yep, Tom Brady.
That's something Marcus usually will not do as far as drafting a quarterback early. You're talking 3rd round, and it's Tom Brady, okay. But most of Marcus and I, a lot of times, we're letting those quarterbacks fall to us. Like you said here, 5th round, we're talking Cam Newton. Halfway through the 5th round, you're getting a guy who finished 4th overall, who, as a rookie, was unstoppable. Yes, the defenses picked up to it last year, but what you got to believe in is that Cam is going to get the one leg up on the defenses this year. He's going to have this offseason to prepare, to better himself. Guy's 23 years old, and an unstoppable force. He does it all. Taking a quarterback in the 5th round is 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th round. Unless you're getting a Tom Brady in the 3rd round, I think it's a position you need to let fall to you. There's a lot out there.
Yeah, last year he was consistently drafted in the 2nd round. So getting him in the 5th this year, it's definitely a bargain. It's not, it's a bargain.
When you mention the guys after him, the Macklins, the Reggie Bush, huge question mark, the Eddie Lacy, we're talking about a rookie. T.Y. Hilton, what does he really put up this year? I mean, he's got the potential. James Jones, another guy in Green Bay who flip a coin. Good luck, roll a dice, figure out who it's going to be that Sunday. And then a backup running back / starting running back in Carolina with Jonathan Stewart, who's really not done a whole lot in the last few years. I think that's a huge pick for Cam Newton in the 5th round. I would love it if he's my starter, especially when you go with those 4 picks prior to him to make sure you solidify your team.
Yeah, see, speaking of the T.Y. Hilton pick, because that was my pick.
Yep. 59, so the 11th pick in the 5th round, Marcus went with T.Y. Hilton, who Marcus really liked last year. Go ahead and tell us why this year you think you really see some good things with him.
Well, see, with T.Y., the thing about him was after their bye week last year was really the change for Andrew Luck. That's why they're targeting T.Y. Hilton more than Reggie Wayne. I think in the beginning, Andrew Luck, he was a rookie quarterback.
Right.
He was reading that first read with Reggie Wayne and just, all right, there's my first read. I got to throw it to him. Boom, there it is.
Right.
And then as he developed as a quarterback, he realized he has the time to look down all his reads. He has the time to look off, to other receivers. And T.Y. really started to be the benefactor of that. He started reading T.Y. Hilton and hitting him a lot more and throwing it to him a lot more. And there's no reason why that shouldn't continue this year. Reggie Wayne will still be a factor, but I think this is the year that T.Y. Does better than Reggie Wayne. I think this year he surpasses him. Obviously, like I said, second half of the year last year, he was getting more looks than Reggie Wayne, and if you're telling me I can get the guy that's getting the most looks from Andrew Luck in that offense, in the end of the 5th round, I'm taking it.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. Is when you say T.Y. Hilton, 2 things you need to say is Reggie Wayne's 34 years old. And the quarterback that's throwing it to him is Andrew Luck. The kid is
2 great things.
Amazing. He's getting better, obviously, by the week. The kid prepares. And when you're saying the guy ahead of T.Y. on the depth chart, on the read for Andrew Luck is Reggie Wayne, who is 34 years old. And, a guy that works his ass off. He's been good forever. But it's going to happen. He's getting old. T.Y. is progressing, and he's got Andrew Luck throwing to him. So
yeah, and I don't think people realize. I mean, he had 7 receiving touchdowns last year.
Right.
He got it done receiving. He just really turned it on. He got the touchdowns. He got the targets. He got the looks. I mean, I'm looking. I mean, like I said, week 9 and on, 16 fantasy points, 3. All right, not so great, but 22, 15, 10, 5. Another bad one. 13, 3, 17. That's just, he's constantly double digits, in several of those weeks. Those 3 weeks, I mean, obviously he had bad games, but that could happen to anybody. I mean, I think, if he continues on that type of pace next year, that's, end of the 5th round, it's great value.
I mean, he's got the big playability, and that's really, in today's NFL, is becoming more and more prevalent. So, into the 6th round, starting off with Jonathan Stewart, we already touched base on him just a little bit. I mentioned him briefly. We got Deshaun Jackson following at Marcus's pick with a second pick in the 6th round. Then Antonio Brown, Steve Smith out of Carolina, of course, and then Kyle Rudolph wrapping up the 6th round in the first half there of the 6th round is Mikel LeSure. So you see the 4th tight end go off the board, Kyle Rudolph out of Minnesota. And Marcus going with Deshaun Jackson, who I love under Chip Kelly. To get him in the 6th round, I'm not even kidding. If he finishes top 5, I wouldn't shake a fist at it. I just, the explosiveness that he combines with the Chip Kelly spread offense, I love him this year. I love it this year. So, Marcus, you took him. Why did you take him?
He's perfect for the Chip Kelly offense. I mean, Chip Kelly's already said he's going to line him up in the backfield a little bit. He's going to spread him out wide. I think Deshaun Jackson's going to easily finish with. I think he's going to finish with 100 touches this year. Whether it be, it's obviously going to be rushing and receiving, but he's going to get 100 touches. They're going to use him like Percy Harvin in Minnesota.
Yep.
He's going to get
a more creative offense.
Yeah, he's going to get so many.
Doesn't have half the mind of the football genius offensively as Chip Kelly.
He's going to get so many opportunities. I think it's just 6th round. Like I said, I finished, I'm looking for wide receivers right now.
Right.
And like I said, T.Y. Hilton and Deshaun Jackson, I think, are 2 that, like you said, could break top 15, maybe even top 10. They have that ability, especially in the offenses they're in. So I'm going to take that risk.
My guess is that pick took you about 3 seconds to just make sure you found and click on
it. I was debating him over T.Y. Hilton, actually.
Yeah. So Antonio Brown, right there after him. Obviously, I don't have to ask you, put 5 on who's going to be better because you took Deshaun, but do you like Antonio there at that pick?
I think those are really close, really good picks.
Yeah,
I mean,
agree.
that's still great value. He's the guy in Pittsburgh. Wallace is obviously gone.
Right.
Who's Roethlisberger going to throw to? I mean, it's Antonio Brown, it's Heath Miller, it's maybe Emmanuel Sanders.
Right.
I think probably they draft somebody in the second, third round maybe to help that out a little bit. But it's pretty clear that they're losing Mendenhall this year, so they're going to become more of a passing offense. It's got to be Brown. It's just a matter of how much can Brown done being the guy for Pittsburgh. Can he still be that great receiver without somebody taking the attention away from him?
I mean, for me, I'm taking both Deshaun Jackson and Antonio Brown over the previous 1, 2, 3, 4 wide receivers taken. Torrey Smith, Jeremy Maclin, T.Y. Hilton, and James Jones. I mean, T.Y. Hilton, I can see the upside there. Deshaun has proven it. Antonio has proven it in their years. I just like him better. And Jeremy Maclin going over Deshaun is not, I don't know. For me, and obviously for you, not going to be the pick to take. Steve Smith is following those guys. We got Kyle Rudolph. Talk to me about the fourth tight end taken off the board. Do you see some good things for Kyle Rudolph this year? The kid's got the size of the Gronkowski. He ran a 4.6 40 out of Notre Dame. Can Leslie Frazier figure out how to utilize the tight end and make him more than just a red zone threat this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think he gets a lot of work, and I think he gets it done. Again, I'm still taking Aaron Hernandez over him just because.
Yeah.
I mean, give me Brady over Ponder. Call me crazy, but I'm taking Brady over Ponder.
Yeah,
I mean,
the upside, no question.
It's a much better offense. I'm taking the guy receiving the ball from Brady all day instead of Christian Ponder.
Yeah, so I think you agree, as do I. Rudolph is right there as a fourth tight end this year.
He's definitely up there. He's got the possibility.
Yeah.
Like I said, the quarterback play just scares me.
You're really drafting a lot of potential there. Guys like Davis, out of San Francisco, you've pretty much seen what he's going to do. You're hoping Kyle Rudolph can take that next step. So LaShore finished this first half of the 6th round. He's a starting running back in Detroit. I like it. I mean, in the 6th round, to get a guy who's pretty much unquestioned the carries, man. I know they've got some guys that they like out of the backfield better, and this year might be a little different. There's talk of Reggie Bush coming in, and that will obviously change the landscape. But I like the eye test. When I watch LaShore run, he runs hard. He's got pretty good quickness. He's got decent speed, and he's obviously got the size. Do you like him there? I mean, how can you argue with that?
He's too touchdown dependent for me.
Okay.
I mean, I think in dynasty leagues, he's great because he's 24 and he's still got a lot left to play. But I just think he's too touchdown dependent for me. I don't think the yards are there from what I'm looking for. I mean, he had one 100-yard game last year, and that came in the first game that he played in week 3. If you want to talk even, I mean, let's call 70 yards a good running back. So he's going to get you 70 yards every week. He had, counting that 100-yard game, he had 2 games over 70 yards rushing. It just, 70 yards, I could get 70 yards behind the right line. It just, to see that he's only had 2 games over 70 yards, that scares me a lot. He's just not getting the yards, so he's so dependent on that touchdown, so he's going to have those big swing games. I just, for that reason, I'm not a fan. Also, a lot of talk about them bringing in another running back like Reggie Bush. Maybe drafting a guy like Marcus Lattimore, second, third round to give him a little bit of competition, maybe, supplement him a little bit. That all takes away from his value a little bit, and that scares me a little bit.
I think another thing, too, is clearly, Marcus, you might be able to help me with the exact, I don't have it. How many times last year, throwing versus passing, the Detroit Lions throw the football? Running is almost more just like...
they threw it.
We got to do it to keep defenses honest, but they throw the ball more than I would have guessed. I don't know this off the top of my head. I'm going to say right now they were at least top 5 in passing attempts in the NFL. And in the rushing department, I would say probably top 10 lowest. I mean, they throw the football, so he doesn't quite get the opportunity. The talent might be there. Like I said, he passes my eye test. I see him run the ball. I like him. But he doesn't get the opportunity. Red zone, yes. But he just... It's the passing game in that team, and I think that's really what holds him back. And like you said, they are looking for a guy who's a little bit more complete. You're not going to send him out of the backfield. Although I see it. For some reason they don't. They had a guy, Joik Bell, last year. Basically, he was their third down back. as Marcus talked about earlier in this podcast, when you're looking for a running back, you want a guy that's going to do it all. He's going to run the ball. He's not going to be a guy that the coach is afraid to take out in a passing situation. If you get a guy that can run, the guy that can catch the passes, the opportunity's obviously just there more to make things happen.
Stafford last year threw it a career high 727 times last year. That's over 45 times a game.
Unbelievable.
Just not a lot of opportunities for LaShore, obviously,
Right.
if they're throwing the ball that much.
LaShore led the team in carries with 215 carries, followed by Joik Bell at 82. So
he's getting the carries, just not getting the yards.
He's getting
from
the
him.
carries based on the other guys, but as far as opportunity on that offense,
not a whole lot.
Schwartz loves to throw the football. So, sixth round, okay, I love it. He's a starting running back, but it's a little bit different when you're a starting running back for Detroit than, say, the Minnesotas of the world. So, not bad. But let's move on. So we're into the second half of the sixth round. Matt Ryan, Peyton Manning, Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, Vic Ballard, Colin Kaepernick. God, you gotta love him, and then Russell Wilson. So we saw a bunch of QBs go there.
Big QB run right through
there.
Four
of them out of the six. Let's play a put 5 on it there. Matt Ryan, Peyton Manning, Colin Kaepernick, Russell Wilson. Marcus, which one is going to finish next year number 1 out of those 4?
Colin Kaepernick. I mean,
I
started looking into the stats on this, and Kaepernick, over the games that he started last year, if you extrapolate that out over a 16-game season last year, he would have finished as the number 1 quarterback last year. Just the numbers he was putting up were just amazing. From what I believe, I'd have to go back and double check, but every game last year it was over 14 fantasy points. He was just killing it last year, and I think he continues to do that again this year.
So Marcus put 5 on Colin Kaepernick, and I absolutely agree with him. Russell Wilson, though, is a guy that I really like coming out this year. Somebody who, if he falls to me in, say, the 8th round, I'm taking him and I'm going to move on, and he's going to be my quarterback. So we're going to go on to the 7th round, followed by Russell Wilson to end the 6th comes Greg Jennings out of Green Bay for now. Then Darrell Richardson out of St. Louis. You anticipate that Steven Jackson is going to be gone. Stafford goes with the 3rd pick in the 7th round. Then Andrew Luck, Stevie Johnson, Vernon Davis ends the first half of the 7th round. There's some names there that really catch your eye. Obviously, Andrew Luck, he's getting to that star level.
It really shows you the depth of the quarterbacks, though. I mean, Matthew Stafford and Andrew Luck in the 7th round.
Love it.
I mean, Stafford was going end of the 1st round last year. Now he's in the 7th, and I get it. He had a bad year last year as far as touchdowns go, but he still threw for 4,900 yards. I mean,
he still has Calvin Johnson. Who is better than God at football.
I got to say, though, I mean, he lost Titus Young, so that's got to bump him down. That's got to bump him down from the first round to the 7th.
They were all
it makes
smoking
sense.
weed together before the game. Maybe it calmed everything down. But now Titus Young's gone. Big fucking deal. The punk. Greg Jennings falling to the 7th round. He's a guy that I've somehow found myself with over these years. He's just solid. He always does it. Was it a product of first Brett Favre and then Aaron Rodgers, or is he just a damn good player? Because I think he's just a damn good player, and wherever he goes, he's going to be a damn good player. He's still only 28, 29 years old off the top of my head. So Greg Jennings in the 7th round, I love it.
Yeah, he's going to be in Miami this year. That's where I think he's going.
Where he's unquestionably the best.
Oh,
and it's
definitely.
Not
even close.
You got Brian Hartline, who couldn't wear his fucking left shoe as his number 2 receiver there. So, yeah, if that happens, I think wherever Greg goes, whether it's Miami or wherever he ends up being, he's a good player. He's just a good player, and he's going to make things happen in the 7th round. I love it.
Yeah.
Darrell Richardson going there. He's a guy that a lot of people might be saying, who's that? Well, he was the backup running back in St. Louis last year. Got a lot of work. So call him in the backup in today's NFL. It's more like he's the RB2. They all get work. And he's a guy who has some speed. He's actually got a little more size than most people realize. Actually, Marcus pointed out to me the other day. He's a guy that could possibly carry a load. Marcus, do you like him? Is he a guy that you can see 1,000-yard, 5, 6, 7-yard touchdown season with some catches? Because he can do that out of the backfield as well.
Yeah, he was good. I mean, he got 4.8 yards per carry last year. He can definitely handle the workload. I think they add somebody. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't add like a Michael Turner type person,
Right.
To kind of help ease the workload a little bit. But I think he's going to be the guy this year.
To keep him around, 200 to 230 carries type guy.
Yeah, keep him fresh.
Andrew Luck, do we need to talk about him? No. Stafford, do we need to talk about him? No, you already did. He's the guy, his first, second round pick last year in some drafts. Like you said, quarterback. Wait on it. I think that's what you're kind of gathering from this draft. Wait on it, unless you can get a Tom Brady type guy in the third round.
I mean, it's crazy. Just look at it. I mean, Andrew Luck and Stafford in the 7th round. That's crazy.
So then Stevie Johnson, Vernon Davis. Vernon Davis, he's the 5th tight end off the board. I think that's about right. You want to take him over Kyle Rudolph. I got no problems with that. It's still...
He got hurt a little bit with Kaepernick. I mean, Kaepernick wasn't looking towards him, but, I mean, he's still right up there, I think.
Kaepernick and him, I think, as time goes on, are really going to be a good connection. Kaepernick's a guy that can extend a play. And Vernon Davis isn't your typical tight end. The guy came out of Maryland running a 4.37 40. That's just unheard of out of a tight end. He's a guy that can make a big play happen. So I like him and Kaepernick. It might not have showed on the field, but like you said, Vernon Davis wasn't completely healthy. If you take him over the tight end out of Minnesota, Rudolph, I think that's probably a good idea. We'll move on. Second half of the 7th round, Mike Williams out of Tampa Bay, Tony Romo, Joe Flacco, Justin Blackmon out of Jacksonville, followed by Austin Miles, and then Robert Griffin finishes out the 7th round. Obviously, torn ACL changes things with him, but Marcus, who's catching your eye out of those 6 guys?
It's crazy.
And then talk a little bit about Griffin for me.
I think the Griffin pick is just crazy right there. End of the 7th round, that is just crazy. He was the number 1 quarterback for most of last year, and to fall to the last pick of the 7th round, I mean, he's going to miss some games next year. That's almost guaranteed. It's just a matter of how much.
Right.
But he's going to be back second half of next year, so he's going to be back when you need him to really turn it on and need him for the fantasy playoffs. So I think that's a great pick, end of the 7th round. I think Fantasy Taz, Jim Day, the guy that runs these mock drafts, he just killed it, these 2 picks in a row that he had back-to-back. I mean, he went Griffin, and then he went Andre Brown, which, again, I don't think it's so clear-cut that David Wilson's the guy, so I think those are 2 great picks.
Isn't it nuts, the separation from David Wilson in the 2nd round to Andre Brown in the 8th round? Compare the stats last year. If you didn't know football, if you fell on this planet yesterday and you looked at it, you're taking Andre Brown first, so to see that difference...
There's no basis for it. There's no basis for David Wilson being that much higher than Andre Brown.
Yes, here's the basis, is the fact that he runs fast. That's literally what it is.
He's David Wilson's the sexy pick. That's all it is. That's what's making him a 2nd round pick over Andre Brown's 8th round. That's right. He's the sexy pick, and that's what's bumping him up. I think both those picks were great picks. I personally, with my pick, I went with Miles Austin just because, again, I'm trying to fill out my wide receivers. Miles Austin, end of the 7th round. He's been consistent over the years. He's the touchdown guy. End of the 7th round, I don't see anything wrong with that. I was very happy with that. Right. And then to start off the 8th round after the Andre Brown pick, Willis McGahee was my running back just to get me a good, solid, running back for that running back 3 or backup. McGahee technically is still the starter. He is old. He does get banged up a lot, so that could change quite a bit. But he's solid, and that's what I want from one of my backups. So I was okay with him in the 8th round.
Yeah, Robert Griffin going there at Taz to finish the 7th round. The thing, guys like you and I, guys that really pay attention to fantasy football, we're going to make the playoffs. So what are we playing for? We're playing for weeks.
Playing to win.
We're playing for weeks 14, 15, 16, or if your league is 15, 16, 17, you're playing for the playoffs. By the time the playoff comes around, Robert Griffin is going to be Robert Griffin. So to get him in the 7th round, maybe you take a guy a few rounds later to get you by those first 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, but you're getting Robert Griffin in the 7th round. What did he finish last year, Marcus, overall? It's escaping me quickly. I'm going to guarantee you he was top 4 overall. Even
Griffin was 5th, but
as a rookie.
Griffin ended up 5th last year.
All right, so
technically, tied for 5th with Peyton Manning.
So all right, that's what I'm saying. You get him the end of the 7th round. I love it. I really do. Yeah. And like Marcus says, following it up with Fantasy Taz going with Andre Brown to start the 8th, and then Willis McGahee, number 2, Kendall Wright, Dennis Pitta, Cecil Shorts, and D'Angelo Williams to finish out the 8th. Fantasy Taz, again, like we talked about just a minute ago, getting the guy who basically had a better year than the guy who's going, we're seeing in mock drafts 2 to 3rd round out of David Wilson.
Jim Day's done this for a long time. He knows what he's doing.
He does. At Fantasy Taz. So Marcus goes with Mills McGahee. We talked about him a little bit. Love the pick there in the 8th round. Are you kidding me? With a guy at quarterback like Peyton Manning, he could make you or I look good, and I'm 5'8", 5'11", 200 pounds. Good luck me running a 40-yard dash without breathing heavy. So beyond that, the 3rd pick, Kendall Wright. Going before his counterpart, Kenny Britt, we haven't mentioned his name yet. Dennis Pitta, Cecil Shorts, D'Angelo Williams to finish the round. Kendall Wright do you see a breakout year for him? We showed a lot of talent from him last year. Do you see it, Marcus?
He's a slot guy. He's going to have a lot of receptions, but I still think he finishes with, 800 to 1,000 yards.
Right.
I don't think he really cracks much over 1,000 yards if he gets it.
Mm-hmm.
He's just a slot guy that's going to catch a lot of little passes. Probably, 60 receptions for 850 yards is probably my prediction.
So, Kendall Wright, are you taking him over Cecil Shorts or Josh Gordon here? Josh Gordon has the potential to be the unquestioned number 1 in Cleveland. So what are you doing? Those 3 guys, put 5 on it. Number 1 out of those 3, who are you taking there?
It's so tough, but I'd probably bet on Josh Gordon.
Put 2 on it if you want.
I'd probably bet Josh Gordon. I love Cecil Shorts a lot. He did a lot of great things last year, but those concussions are really scaring me.
Right.
There's talks that he's still dealing with issues with the concussions.
And so they took Blackman, right, in the 1st round. They obviously don't want to prove themselves wrong. He's the guy there. You want to believe, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's really. I mean, there's so many question marks there. It's Cecil Shorts' concussions. It's the quarterback play. There's just a lot of questions going on right now in Jacksonville, and I mean, that's the only reason why I'm probably going with Josh Gordon over all of them. Gordon has that big play potential. We saw it a couple times last year with the 100-yard and 2-touchdown type games. It could happen for him. So I would take Josh Gordon over all those guys.
D'Angelo Williams, 8th round, halfway through it. Sure. I guess it's just funny. I bring him up because 3 years ago you tell me 8th round, 6th pick in the 8th round, D'Angelo Williams. I would have said you're crazy. So we'll move on. Josh Gordon, we talked about him briefly. He was the 7th pick of the 8th round. We got Jermaine Gresham. He's the 6th tight end, if I remember, off the board.
Like that.
Then Kenny Britt, Giovanni Bernard, Shane Vereen, and then Denario Alexander is a big name there. Marcus, talk to me about somebody. Any one of these 6, Kenny Britt, like I said earlier, I like him over Kendall Wright.
Yeah, I think Kenny Britt jumps out to me out of all those guys. I would even probably take him over Josh Gordon. He's another one of those guys that when he plays, he's a stud. So, I mean, you can't... you're not going to get a 16-game season out of him, but when he plays, he's awesome. And in the 8th round, and almost end of the 8th round, that's huge value right there.
The biggest question for me from Kenny Britt all these years has been, can he read? Physically, the talent is there. I just don't know if he understands what a game plan is. I don't know if he knows how to spell game plan. If he did, though, the guy, he can run, he can jump, he's got the hands.
He's a big guy.
And every year, I'm waiting for him to really break out. You've seen a couple games where it's like, this kid can be the best receiver in the league. So getting him in the 8th round, I love it. Because at this point in the draft, you're looking for potential.
Yep.
You want to talk about Giovanni Bernard? No. I mean, let's talk about this when the draft is done. He's a great talent, but you don't know what kind of a
you don't know where they're going to land.
Gonna be coming in. It's tough to talk about a rookie right now.
Yep.
Shane Vereen, I'll bring it up because it's an explosive offense in New England. He is a guy that has had a prominent role and then nothing, and then what's he going to do this year in New England?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's just they spread the ball. There's just so many people in New England. It's hard to pick one guy and just stick with him. I mean. Okay. What's Brandon Bolden going to do next year? I mean, he was the guy until he got busted for PEDs and everything.
He was the guy behind Ridley.
With Ridley. I mean, Ridley and him were splitting carries until he got hurt and then busted for PEDs and everything else. So I mean, it just who's going to get the ball? Are they going to throw the ball more? They've been running the ball more. I mean, there's still a lot of people out there I would take before Vereen.
So the guy to finish out the 8th round, Denario Alexander, Marcus, I'm going to talk about him because I need your help on this one. He's a guy that I literally finished my season off with as my number 2 receiver, and he did work. He is 6'4". He's in the 210, 220-pound variety type guy. He can go up and get the ball. He's had the talent. He just hasn't been able to stay on the field healthy. He got signed to the Chargers last year as basically an afterthought, and all of a sudden came in and did what Robert Meacham was supposed to do for them at very minimal cost. Getting him in the 8th round, if you look at his last, 5-6 games of the season, that's supreme value there. Was it just the case of the defensive coordinators not knowing that he could do this at this point, being such a new guy? Or do you see Jaire Alexander being a guy that you want to draft maybe earlier in the 8th round this year, talking top 5 rounds?
I mean, it's kind of crazy when you look at him. I mean, he was somebody that I really didn't pay too much attention to, but I probably should. Right. I mean, he really only started playing in Week 9, and he missed Week 15. So in those 7 games, he finished with 7 touchdowns. I mean,
it's amazing.
That's crazy.
Talk about,
a 7-touchdown year for most people is a really, really good year, and he did it in 7 games. I mean, he definitely got it done when he played. I don't know. I feel like I got to see a little bit more out of him and Phillip Rivers and see how things work out.
I don't know these off the top of my head, but you happen to have the numbers there, the games that he put together during that little bit of a stretch.
Yeah, I mean, he had a 134-yard 1-touchdown game, a 96-yard 2-touchdown game, a 88-yard 2-touchdown game. Towards the end of the season, he had a couple of those, not very many catches, but touchdown game.
Yep.
I mean, in those 7 games that he played, he had a touchdown in 5 of them. He was obviously getting it done. He was the red zone guy for them. Rivers must just love his big size. I don't know. It's hard with such a small sample size if he can keep it going or not.
Right. Can he fill that Vincent Jackson role? And if he can, then getting him in the 8th round is huge.
That's a good comparison.
He's got the size. He's got the speed. Can he do it? We don't know. So going into the 9th round, we got Ingram, Bryce Brown, Danny Amendola, Jermichael Finley, Sean and Bernard Pierce, the backup in Baltimore. Ingram, good luck. Bryce Brown, amazing handcuff. If you get LaShawn McCoy this year, not that he's had an injury problem, but I think he, as far as we're talking talent, the top running back, anybody in the NFL, Bryce Brown is the best. If you're going to have a backup, this guy could start for a lot of teams. Make sure you have him because he's like a few years from me. I had McFadden. I put my bench. Help me out, the running back. Bush was in Oakland at the time, not in Chicago. Basically, when McFadden went down, I had Bush, and he was every bit of McFadden because now I didn't have to worry about it. Bryce Brown's one of those guys. If you get McCoy, make sure you get him because he's going to pull in some big-ass numbers. Mark, is there anybody in that 6 that I just mentioned? Danny Amendola could be going to New England. You've heard that rumblings.
Yeah, he could be if Welker's gone, which would be obviously great value in the 9th round. That's
right?
Crazy value.
Yeah.
And this is all stuff that we'll know closer to August, September, but that could be huge value. I mean, even in staying in St. Louis, he was doing very, very well. It'll be interesting to see where he goes.
Jermichael Finley, we'll move on. I mean, he's a guy that has the talent. He's got stone hands. Other than that, he's tight end. Like
he needs to just shut his mouth. He just keeps running his mouth about Aaron Rodgers and about Green Bay, and he just needs to shut up and put up. Basically, I mean, he hasn't put up in a while, so he needs to just shut up.
Moving beyond that, Bernard Pierce, he's a guy who I guess I'll put him behind the Bryce Brown as far as who we're going to take as a handcuff.
Those 2 are really good handcuffs.
So starting the second half of the 9th round, we got Lance Moore, Fred Jackson, Andy Dalton out of Cincinnati, Ben Tate, and Michael Turner is Marcus's pick with the 11th pick in the 9th round, followed by Eli Manning. So, Marcus, you took Michael Turner. I hate Michael Turner.
You hate him.
I've seen it. Every year he gets a step slower. I probably beat him in a 40-yard dash myself, and I haven't run a 40-yard dash since I was 18, 10 years ago. But as you point out, the guy runs hard. He's going to be an outstanding goal line back. Where do you see him going, and why did you take him here? I know it's the 9th round, but what do you see out of him this year?
He's going to go somewhere, number 1. And number 2, he scored at least 10 touchdowns in 5 straight years.
That's outstanding.
I mean, he's a touchdown vulture. That's what he's been. That's what he's going to do. That's what he's going to continue to do. Wherever he goes, he's not going to be he's not going to be the number 1 guy. That's for sure. We all know that. But wherever he goes, he's going to be the touchdown guy. If you're telling me I can get a guy that's going to score me 10 touchdowns in the 9th round, in the end of the 9th round, are you kidding me? That's crazy value. I'm taking that all day long.
So you love him basically as your bye week fill-in running back who you can almost count on 6 points, 8 points. You know, he's a guy that's going to go in, he's going to get some work, he's going to get goal line carries, and depending on where he goes, he could be a solid backup running back.
I mean, he's a guy that this late in the 9th round, I mean, we're talking backup running backs. We're talking, you just said Bryce Brown, Bernard Pierce, Fred Jackson, Ben Tate. How can you not consider Michael Turner in that category? We don't know where he's going to land or what his role is going to be. But even assuming he's the backup, I still got to have him ahead of Ben Tate. I still got to have him ahead of Fred Jackson. I mean, he's got a lot going on.
So we're talking into the 9th round now, the end of it. There goes Eli Manning. Starting the 10th, we got Tony Gonzalez, Ryan Williams out of Arizona, Ben Roethlisberger, another rookie, Tavon Austin, and then Monty Ball out of Wisconsin. Now, we're looking at the 9th, 10th round. There's quarterbacks like Eli Manning and Ben Roethlisberger going. Those guys are guys that if you build a team and they're your quarterbacks, you're going to be just fine. You're seeing them go in the 9th and 10th round. Marcus, we said this already, 5-6 times. I'll listen back and count it up if you want, but wait on your quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, even those guys in a quarterback by committee, I mean, it's amazing. There's so many good quarterbacks out there this year that I mean, can you imagine if you take an Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady or Drew Brees really high and something happens to them like the Tom Brady of 2008 or whatever it was when he gets knocked out for the year? I mean,
you're going to lose 2 points going to a guy like Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, it's just,
and literally that's about it.
You gotta wait on quarterback this year and maybe do the quarterback by committee if you're really that worried about it, because there's so much great talent this late. You have to wait on quarterback as much as you can, unless it just falls into your lap like it did with me with Tom Brady in the end of the 3rd round. I mean, unless it falls into your lap like that, you just gotta wait on quarterback.
Now, Marcus, you took Ryan Williams here, a kid with a lot of talent out of Arizona, came out of Virginia Tech. The guy can move. He's got the quickness. He's got the speed. He's not a little guy. He hasn't really done it in the NFL. Some injuries going on. Is he a guy you see in the 10th round as a possible top 20 running back this year?
They wanted him to be the starter last year, and he had the job until he got hurt again. And it's last year was a shoulder injury. The year before it was a knee injury. So it's different injuries. It's not like he's re-hurting the same thing over and over again.
Yep.
He's just getting very unlucky. And I think obviously this year he's going to be healthy again. He's going to have the starting job, and you're going to give me a starting running back in the 10th round. I'm taking that.
Now, Brian Hartline, I mean, we're skipping over a few wide receivers. A few rookies there, just because it's tough to talk about them. We don't know where they're going to end up being, what their position or role is going to be on the team. But Brian Hartline, going in the 10th round, the 6th pick to end the first half of the 10th round, the guy, he had 74 catches, 1,083 yards. He's 6'2", so he's a good size. He's got a little bit of speed. He ran a 4.52 40 at the combine. Is he a guy to get in this round that, I mean, you gotta love that?
I mean, yeah, 10th round. That's a quality pick. I mean, he did well last year. He's been doing well. I mean, at 10th round, it's all a crapshoot right now. So right. I have no problem with Brian Hartline in the 10th round.
To get a guy with numbers like that in 10th round, I think is an outstanding pick by at Ty Beeman 1. So. Moving on, we got Heath Miller. We've talked about tight ends. You talk about the first two, and after that,
if you don't take one of the first two, just
luck.
Wait on tight end. Just wait till the end.
LaMichael James, Sean Green out of New York, Denarius Moore, Muhammad Sanu, and then Chris Givens. So Marcus didn't have a pick in this 6, but a guy that really catches my eye, Denarius Moore. What do you think about him? 10th pick of the 10th round. He's a guy that could be the number one. Has shown that he is the number one in Oakland. I like it here.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he did really well. He has a lot of potential, and they really want him to succeed. Rod Streeter last year really took a lot of the targets away from him. Second half of the year, they really moved the focus to Rod Streeter for some reason. I'm not really sure what the reasoning was, but I think a lot of it's actually going to come down to, who's the quarterback going to be for the Raiders this year? Is it going to be Palmer? Is it going to be Terrell Pryor? We don't know yet. We're going to know more later in the year. How that's going to affect Denarius Moore, it's going to play out. We're going to see what happens, I guess. But yeah, I mean, another one of those roll the dice, big play potential type guys. End of the 10th round, why not?
Denarius Moore is a guy who he's a little bit more raw. Streeter, he came into this league. He's not a physical freak athletic-wise, but he runs good routes. He's got a good mind for football. With Moore, I like a guy like Terrell Pryor being his quarterback. He's a a guy that extends plays and can get a little bit more involved. Like you said, 10th round, yeah, it's Denarius Moore. I like it where he is. He's got the potential. So moving on, 11th round, we got Robert Turbin, Anquan Bolden, Greg Olson, Ryan Broyles out of Detroit, Vincent Brown, and then Sidney Rice with the 11th round, 6th pick. Out of all those names, that guy catches my eye. He really, as the season progressed, and Russell Wilson out of Seattle really picked up his game. Sidney Rice became a very consistent performer. He's a guy who is 6'4". He's got a good frame. He can go up and get the football. He's got great hands. He's obviously put together an outstanding season before when Brett Favre was in Minnesota. And injuries have been what slowed him down as you've seen him get healthier. With the 11th round, 6th pick, I think Sidney Rice is a guy that if he ended top 25 this year, I would chalk that up as something that I maybe saw coming. What do you think, Marcus? 11th round, Sidney Rice.
Yeah, that's all right. I mean, I think it's fair for him. I'm not as big on him as you are. Okay. Starting wide receiver. That Seattle doesn't throw the ball as much as you'd think. Russell Wilson, I think, from what I can remember, only averages probably, if I had to guess, 25 pass attempts a game.
Yeah.
They don't throw the ball too much. I don't know. I mean, 11th round, he's a guy.
For me, I just think it's a little bit more of they were, taking it easy on Russell. He's a rookie. As the season got on, they opened the offense a little more. Just for me, he's a guy. Keep an eye on Sidney Rice. If you can get him in the 11th round, you're doing well.
Yeah, Russell Wilson had 393 pass attempts last year.
Yep.
So that was 24 and a half a game. So I was dead on with my 25 guess. So
moving on, Rashard Mendenhall, first pick in the 11th. Second half of the 11th round, number 7. Josh Freeman, Antonio Gates, Jared Cook, Brandon Lloyd, and then Brandon Pettigrew. So we saw some tight ends go here. Marcus, I'll do another put 5 on it. Antonio Gates going to the 11th round. 3 years ago, wow. Today, he's getting older.
Not so much.
So Jared Cook, Antonio Gates, Jared Cook, Brandon Pettigrew. Out of those 6, we had 3 tight ends go. Who are you taking out of those 3 guys the first in that group?
A lot of it's going to depend on where Jared Cook goes. But if I had to pick today, I'm taking Brandon Pettigrew.
I agree, 100%.
727 pass attempts for Stafford. That's a ton. Pettigrew used to be, their red zone target. I want to say his rookie year he had like 85 receptions or something. They throw him the ball. I mean, he's the red zone guy. Obviously besides Megatron.
Right.
But he's a big target. He's a big guy. He gets thrown to a lot. Gates, I'm just staying away. He gets hurt so much. I'm staying away from him this year. Cook, like I said, it's going to depend on where he goes. If he goes to a place like, I don't know, Minnesota, I'm staying away from him. If he goes to a place like New York, because maybe Martellus Bennett leaves some free agency, hey, maybe that's a good place for him with Eli Manning throwing him the ball, and maybe I bump him up a little bit ahead. But right now I got Brandon Pettigrew. All those pass attempts, big guy. He's going to get it done.
Cook's like that blonde-haired, blue-eyed, 110-pound, chick in the corner of the classroom who you never talk to, but you can see how amazing it was. Cook, that guy can run.
The potential, the development.
You know what I'm saying? He's a guy that you've always been scared of. You stay away from him, but if he comes out and he is the number 1 tight end, you could say, athletically, I agree, 100%. He's a guy that you every year you're waiting for it and you haven't seen it. So at this point, I'm staying away from him. But if it happens, God damn it, I should have done what I was. My gut told me.
Yeah, I got to tell you though. I mean, we'll see it with my next pick here.
Yep.
But out of all those guys, Owen Daniels. Are you kidding me? How did Owen Daniels fall below those other guys?
Yeah.
I mean, last year at one point, I think he was like the number 1 or number 2 tight end. I understand he's old. I understand he's getting there. Last year he finished the number 8 tight end overall.
Yep.
I mean, this late, you need a tight end. There he is.
Owen Daniels is like that. The redhead in the corner. She's 150 pounds, but
you like those girls in the corner, huh?
Yeah. Well, the thing is
nobody
Owen
puts
Daniels,
baby in a corner for you.
Owen Daniels has done it. So he's a guy you've seen put the numbers together, but just doesn't look flashy doing it. And,
nope.
and guys,
you don't realize it until you look at the numbers.
But I love it. You take him.
It's consistent.
Production-wise, he is better than all of those guys ahead of him.
Yep.
And then you are getting him in the 12th round, second pick. So after him, Alshon Jeffrey. He's a guy that people might need to put a little bit of a star next to. Keep an eye on him. Keenan Allen, another rookie, and it's tough for us to talk about them at this point. Talk to us in 2 months, and we'll have a better idea.
After the draft,
Brandon Myers, and then that ends the second half of the 12th round. Marcus already talked a little about Owen Daniels, who you got to love at this point in the draft if he's going to be your tight end. Alshon Jeffrey, can Cutler expand his read to 2 options? Because I think this kid has the talent, the size to really be a great complement to a guy like Brandon Marshall in Chicago. What do you think, Marcus?
I don't know. I mean, Cutler, I don't care for at all.
Right.
I mean, I don't know.
It's
Cutler. I have nothing to say about this.
To ask him to make a few reads is tough, but you got to agree with me. The kid is a kid who could put it together. I mean, we're in the 12th round, so right now you're reaching.
It's all lottery picks at this point.
You're looking for talent, and I love the talent that he's got.
Yeah.
Kendall Hunter out of San Francisco. Frank Gore is a guy who produces. He produces year after year, but he's a guy who's getting older. Is there going to be more and more time for Kendall Hunter in this offense? And you're going to start to see that shift happen more and more prevalent over this year.
Yeah, it could very well be. I mean, Gore's not getting any younger. It's eventually it's got to happen.
Okay. I mean, I 100% agree with you, and that's something that probably the last 2 years you listen to a lot of the other guys in our industry talking about fantasy football. He's a guy that people have expected the last few years to slightly drop off, but he's held on. Tight end, we're going into the end of the 12th round, the first half of the end of the 12th round. We're talking Brandon Myers. I'm done talking tight ends. It's basically, like we said, those 2 guys.
Still good, though, that late down.
Great. He's a good player, but I mean, there's 5 of them that...
That's just it. If you don't get the top 2, you just wait. Just wait.
Exactly.
I mean, we still haven't talked about a lot of people. The Brent Sellecks, and I mean, there's a ton of good. I mean, obviously not great, but solid tight ends that you can take.
One, Marcus, 4th pick in the tight end category, being Kyle Rudolph out of Minnesota. I think it was 4th round. Am I right on that?
No, it was a little bit later than that, but he was the 4th tight end off the board. But
My point is you're seeing
there's not much difference,
right, between Kyle Rudolph.
I mean, Kyle Rudolph is definitely better.
It just and then Brandon Myers being taken the 12th round. I think your value go with Brandon Myers all day at that position.
Yeah, so definitely.
Ronnie Hillman is the second half, first pick in the 12th round, number 7. It's followed by the defense of San Francisco going here in the 12th round. I'm wanting to wait on that. Phillip Rivers, Michael Floyd out of Arizona, Michael Vick, and then Marcus Lattimore. So, Marcus, I got one that's catching my eye. I wrote an article about him, but who's catching your eye in that?
Michael Vick. Are you kidding me? End of the 12th round. Yeah. It's just, again, it just shows you how good the quarterback class is. Like, you can wait on quarterback. End of the 12th round, you're getting Michael Vick. Last year, a lot of people had him number 1 overall, the number 1 quarterback and number 1 overall. It's crazy that he's down to the end of the 12th round. I think if he's going to be anything, it's going to be this year with the Chip Kelly offense, where it's spread out for him. If any year is going to be the year, it's this year. So let's just see what he's going to do. I mean, Matt wrote an article and probably could talk more a little bit about it. Matt, tell us a little bit about Michael Vick.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote an article, brick by brick. Chip Kelly will rebuild Michael Vick, and you can find it on blindsidefootball.com. I have a little bit of a partial belief in Chip Kelly. I grew up in the New England area, as Marcus did as well. Chip Kelly actually really originated. He got on the college football scene at UNH football. It's 1AA. He put together some amazing numbers. Read my article to figure out a little closer, but what he did with Ricky Santos, who was actually his quarterback at UNH, the guy was runner-up his junior year for 1AA football's Heisman Trophy winner. He won it his senior year. instantly he gets over to Oregon. Dennis Dixon becomes, before he tore his knee up against Arizona, the number one guy for the Heisman Trophy winner. What is Michael Vick going to do? Both of those guys were athletic quarterbacks with pretty good arms. Michael Vick is about as athletic as it gets. You know, you've seen Robert Griffin. Michael Vick's right up there. He was the first Robert Griffin. I just love him in this offense. I see huge things. Like my article title says, brick by brick, Chip Kelly will rebuild Michael Vick. To get him in the 12th round, I'm not even kidding. I'll go into this year as him as my starter.
That's crazy.
Following him with a solid backup and take those first 11 picks on other positions, because Vick this year can do it. He really can. I believe it. Read my article, and it will give you some more insight on why.
Yeah.
Marcus Lattimore going 12th pick, 12th round. He's a guy who, if you didn't see his knee last year, don't watch it, because just trust me, it makes you want to throw up. But the kid produces. Where he's going to end up, who knows? It's tough, as we've said numerous times, to talk about a rookie. He's a guy that keep an eye on. I really like his worth ethic. He can really do work this year. So we'll move on to the 13th round. We've only got a few more to go. And you're starting to get into numbers where you're reaching for straws here, of course. So first pick, another rookie, DeAndre Hopkins. Fred Davis, another tight end off the board. Isaiah Peed, you're reaching for Steven Jackson gone. Who's going to be there? Is it going to be Isaiah Peed? Probably not Darrell Richardson, but they took him first in the draft last year. Another rookie, Tyler Eifert, is another tight end, and Matt Schaub, and Chicago Bears defense to close it out. So as you see, Matt Schaub, another great quarterback being taken 13th round. If you take a quarterback other than Tom Brady in the 3rd round or earlier, you're nuts.
Yep. You got to wait.
Anybody there that's catching your eyes, or is it just a bunch of, hey, flip a coin, good luck?
Bunch of names.
All right, so we're on to the second half of the 13th round. Bilal Powell. Golden Tate, Bilal Powell, another defense, the Houston Texans, Ryan Tannehill, Beanie Wells in San Antonio Holmes. Marcus Beanie Wells catches my eye here. He's a guy who's got a lot of talent. He was a first-round draft pick out of Ohio State. Injuries have been a problem with him. Another young guy in that offense, Ryan Williams. How many times has he been staying healthy? Can Beanie Wells all of a sudden stay healthy, kind of like a Fred Taylor out of Jacksonville back in the day, who put it together and became one of the best running backs in the league? Does he have that talent?
He definitely could. He's had a lot of. He hasn't really done a whole lot. He's got a lot of rushing touchdowns to his credit.
Yep.
But my main concern when I took him was, I got Ryan Williams. Let's just handcuff him just in case something happens again. Both of them are injury prone. Both of them, something could happen. If one guy over the other is the starter, it could be him. And in the the end of the 13th round, I'm gonna, I got to try to maybe go with him. Like I said, I got Ryan Williams. I got to handcuff it, and if it doesn't work out with Ryan Williams, I got the other guy.
Yep. All right, so we're moving on to the 13th round. Again, not many guys to highlight here. 14th round, I'm sorry. Noshawn Moreno, a guy who really picked it up the end of the season. Might have saved a few seasons for people, and actually could have won some playoff rounds for
he won some for me.
For teams. I know he did for Marcus, that's why I bring it up. He's the first pick of the 14th round. I love the value there. Yep. Marcus takes Julian Edelman, 14th round. Could be one of the best picks in this draft, and we'll get to that in a little bit. 3rd pick was Jay Cutler, then Seattle Seahawks defense, followed by another tight end, Justin Keller, another guy who put it all in with a group of 3 through 8. And then another rookie, Jonathan Franklin. So, Marcus, Noshawn Moreno quickly, and then Julian Edelman. Talk to me about those 2 picks.
Moreno, he did awesome last year when he stepped it up as a starter. And there's been a lot of talks about them bringing in another running back or potentially even cutting Moreno. And I don't really get it. He did everything he was asked for last year as the starter. I don't know what Denver's looking for from the guy, but McGahee's there and Ronnie Hillman's there, and there's some speculation now that Steven Jackson, that they're courting Steven Jackson to come there. Where does that leave Moreno? He tore it up last year in every game. He was so good and so consistent. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand why Denver's so shy to stay away from him. But I like him as a player. I don't really know.
As you said, they're courting Steven Jackson. Willis McGahee, before he got hurt, that guy played some great football. Ronnie Hillman, you watch him, he's electric in a bottle. The guy can just fly. There's been concerns about his ability to pick up the blitzes. And obviously with Peyton Manning, the way he calls audibles, you got to have a smart guy in the backfield there. Can you talk to me about some of the stats that Moreno finished up with? They came out of the blue, out of nowhere. You never expected it. This guy, like I said, he won playoff games for your fantasy football team last year.
Yeah.
Talked about how he finished the year off.
He played, looks like the last 6 weeks of the year here. The first 5 weeks, he had over 20 carries every game.
Right.
20, 20, 32, 22, 22. His fantasy numbers over those last few weeks, 10, 7, 21, 17, 11, 11. I mean,
that's a guy that you were able to pick up off your waiver wire to go into the playoffs and have full confidence that he's going to get you some points.
I'll never forget, I picked him up that Sunday morning, probably around 11 or 12 o'clock, right before game times, when it was announced that he was going to be the starter over Ronnie Hillman, and I picked him up and quickly plugged him in there because I needed a running back, and I never looked back.
Right, he what it actually did for you was sometimes put you in a predicament where it was like, wow, this guy that I've been playing all year, or Moreno.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been producing. He took some teams, like I said, a guy that you could just pick up in the free agency wire to the next level. So, Marcus, quickly, Julian Edelman, I love it here. Obviously, if Welker leaves, that's a guy who's got the talent. If he can stay on the field, holy shit! In the 14th round, you got a guy that could put up some numbers that. Talk to me.
Yeah, if Welker leaves, he's going to be a stud. I mean, basically, he did pretty good last year in his limited time, and I mean, even if Welker stays, he had a 21-point game, a 10-point game last year. He's consistent. He's that Welker clone. He does it all. He's a short little fast guy in the slot. If Welker's gone, he's the guy that immediately steps in there. Again, give me the guy catching the ball from Brady.
Now, we're moving on. We're starting to get into some stuff here. Well, we don't necessarily have to highlight everybody, even in these six. In the 14th round, 7th pick, Terrence Williams.
These are just guys now, pretty much.
Right.
You're filling out your roster.
Especially this part of the season. So Terrence Williams, Martellus Bennett. He's a guy I like. Martellus Bennett. He's a good tight end. If you fall into the 14th round, you got Martellus. He's your starter. You filled in other positions.
That's why you're waiting on tight end.
Yep. Justin Hunter, Sam Bradford. I'm not starting Sam Bradford this year.
Nope.
Denver Broncos defense, and then Jake Locker. He's a guy who he can run. He can do. You've seen the Colin Kaepernicks, the Russell Wilsons, the Robert Griffins. Is he on that level? No. Could he be? Who knows? If he's my backup quarterback, and then come week 15, I'm playing him. I'm not going to be absolutely amazed by that, but he's not a guy. You're talking 14th round, not a big deal. So going on to the 15th, unless there's anybody that you want to talk about, Marcus.
No, and the 15th and 16th rounds, these are the last two rounds of our draft. So, you just see kickers and defenses go like crazy because that's what you should do. Kickers and defenses go in the last two rounds.
Yeah.
At no point should you ever be drafting a kicker defense before the last couple rounds. You have a couple of exceptions. Maybe you draft the 49ers defense, maybe you draft the Bears defense a little early. Mm-hmm. But other than that, 15th, 16th rounds, the last two rounds of your draft have got to be your kickers and defenses. If you're drafting them sooner than that, you don't know what you're doing, and you're obviously not listening to this podcast.
Listen, out of all these picks here, there's one man that I do want to highlight, Marcel Reese. If you are getting Darren McFadden, he needs to be on your roster. We talked about it, Marcus. You mentioned it. You draft Darren McFadden, you are expecting 13 games.
Yep,
if you get 16, oh my God. All right.
Then you definitely got a top 5 guy if he gets you 16
But you
games.
saw Marcel Reese last year when McFadden came out. This guy catches the ball out of the backfield. He's actually pretty talented running the ball. The guy's an amazing athlete. He was actually a wide receiver out of Washington University. He ran a 4.4 40. He's 250 pounds. He's not going to be anything while McFadden's there. But if McFadden gets hurt, now you're talking about a guy who can run.
Well, even when McFadden was there, he was getting some work in that receiving game.
Yeah.
He was getting it done. Last year he finished with he finished with 52 receptions for 500 yards.
Amazing.
Not a lot, but obviously he's the backup guy. He's to get 52 receptions as the backup guy, that's amazing. That's got to be right up there, I would think, for most running backs that are starters.
And again, like you said, you're expecting 13 games out of McFadden. If you're drafting him and you do not get Marcel Reese, I think that's a mistake. So,
yep.
Hey, this is the first podcast for BlindsideFantasyFootball.com. If you have any questions at all, Marcus, where should they shoot them to us on the Twitter page? We'd love to answer them in the next podcast.
Yeah, I mean, you can always send them to my Twitter at Marcus Katkin. Obviously, hit Matt up on his Twitter at Matt Dugal. Or you could always send them to at Blindside FTBALL. That's for Blindside Football for our official Twitter for Blindside Football.
So tune in. The information is going to keep coming. We're going to be doing these weekly during the off season. We'll ramp it up a little bit during the regular season. And anytime you have a question, we're on there frequently. We're loving to help. We're love to give some information that we have. We'll talk to you guys later. See ya.